South Sudan has officially launched its Youth Peace and Security Strategy, and financing documents a major step toward enhancing youth participation in peace building and policy making. A key panel discussion featuring top government officials focused on youth issues and the nation's commitment to empowering its young people. Pierre Philip, Undersecretary in the Ministry of Peace Building, shared insights on how this strategy aims to create lasting impact.
The purpose of coming up with this strategy was for us to institutionalize the role of youth in peace building in South Sudan through the domestication of the UN Security Council 2250 principal pillars of participation, protection, prevention, disengagement and reintegration, partnership. We also included gender equality and inclusion. We found it is important because South Sudan is part of the global world. And in other parts of the world, there has been a lot of attention to support the young people. Because of the energy of the young people, research has shown that if you engage young people in technology and you don't engage them in productive activity, they could be used for wrong things, for violence. Also in the villages, if young people are not given skills to be productive, they can easily be taken for violence. But then this strategy, as you will see later, has opportunity for us to sit together to chart the way forward for young people. Not only those in town, but also those who are in the villages. We had wanted this launch to be an inclusive process. And that's why we have invited a cross-section of our society, our international partner, our civil society organization, our UN partners, also our diplomatic corps, so that we look at this problem. Because addressing the plight of young people is important for South Sudan. It's important for you, our partners, to get the feedback, the impact of your investment in South Sudan. If you don't pay attention to 70% of the population, then we are still scratching the tip of the iceberg. So that's why we have invited you. We also thought it was important that we should have a financing strategy. How do we plan to roll out this strategy? Because sometimes we make strategies with no strategy of financing it. Then it becomes a document in addition to other documents that we have, including our Bibles and Qurans. So this strategy is in a way that it should be implemented. We don't want it to be added to the list of other strategies that we have in our country.
The panel, moderated by Anna Maneno, chair of the Youth Advisory Panel, included Pierre Philip, Deborah Akech, and the secretary in the Ministry of Youth and Sport, Youth Union Chairperson Taban Paride, and Youth Representative Emmanuel Kuku. The discussion tackled pressing concerns from young people and explored how to successfully implement the strategy.
And our first question is going to go to Honorable Pierre Philip Michael, the Undersecretary for the Ministry of Peace Building. So it's more on multi-stakeholder collaboration. Given the diverse roles outlined for governments, NGOs, UN agencies, and youth associations in implementing the national strategy on new peace and security, how can these stakeholders coordinate effectively to avoid duplication, ensure accountability, and maximize impact, especially in resource-constrained settings like South Sudan?
Thank you very much. I think it is important for partners and stakeholders who are in the Republic of South Sudan to support the plight of the young people, to coordinate their efforts with the government institutions, not only at the national level, but also at the state level, at the county level, and also to ensure that South Sudan has its own established pillars for the community. The traditional leadership authority are strong pillars of our society, the women group, the youth group, including those marginalized youth, like those who are in the cattle camp. So really it's about working together and leaving no one behind, giving credit to the people of South Sudan for bringing South Sudan up to here. So the 3 C's: communicate, coordinate, and collaborate. and taking into consideration that South Sudan is not out of the blue. South Sudan has existed, and then those pillars that has kept the communities are not left behind in all what we are doing. So if we do that together, and not every partner running away with their small bits, but doing it together, then we can maximize the impact, and also there will be an accountability to the people of South Sudan and also to the taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then the second question, the next question is for Honorable Deborah Cage. That's sustainable financing mechanisms. Honorable Undersecretary, the strategy identifies multiple funding sources from the government budget to international donors and public-private partnerships. What innovative or underutilized financing models will South Sudan prioritize to ensure long-term sustainability for youth-led peace-building initiatives?
Thank you, Moderator Anna Moreno. We all know that whatever program that we want to implement, without money, it can never be done. So that is why I feel this question is very important and very critical to our youth peace and security. We may discuss it here, we may sign it, it will be domesticated, but without money it will remain in this room. It will not go outside. So I'm going to bring to us areas on how we can do financing to make it sustainable. Because sustainability is very important in the projects that we do as a government, as international organizations, as youth, and as civil society. The first area of where we can be able to get some funding is, of course, local government budgets. Because as government, the government is responsible for everybody in the country, including the youth. And the youth that we look into the issues today are the governments of tomorrow, and even the government of today. So it's very crucial and very important that activities to do with youth are included in the government budget. Although at the moment we have economic crisis, so we're dealing with security, we're dealing with humanitarian crisis. So any other thing outside these two is considered a luxury. So it remains to be considered later on when we have stable countries. Another area that we can be able to get funding is through the multilateral agencies, development partners. And some of the examples of these multilateral companies is African Development Bank and the World Bank and IMF. Currently, we have two projects in the Ministry of Youth and Sports that are being supported by African Development Bank. Just to give a live example. The Youth Empowerment Program that is implemented by UNDP with a grant from African Development Bank, and also small-scale businesses in a fragile country like ours is implemented by UN Women. All these have grants from African Development Bank. The money was given and is given to the youth initiatives free of interest. It's given as a loan. So it's a revolving fund. You borrow, you bring it back, another person borrows it. Although the projects are closing this year, we have the seed capital. We have in our revitalized agreement on the resolutions of conflict in South Sudan that stipulates that the Youth Development Fund is in the agreement, and it should have been put into implementation already. It should be established. But due to the delays in the bill that is still in the Ministry of Justice, it was pushed to the Ministry of Justice, but because of the Council of Ministers have not been meeting for some time, the Ministry of Justice could not present it to the Council of Finance to the Parliament. This, the government is supposed to contribute to that money. All other developmental partners are supposed to contribute to that money, to that fund, so that we can use this now to develop the youth, to develop the creativity, the innovation, and the entrepreneurship skills of the youth. We also have international aid and donor agencies, mostly that are UN agencies and international organizations, and also countries that also support the cause of the youth in South Sudan. And we have been having projects with the Kingdom of Netherlands and other countries that have been supporting activities of the youth. We know about the Orange Corners that are supporting the youth entrepreneurship skills development. So all these that I've mentioned and others are areas that we can tap into to be able to make youth peace and security a sustainable initiative in the country. It's an initiative that we need to own, and we need to keep it until we can comfortably take care of ourselves. And other areas where these youth can also always come together is through community volunteerism. In Rwanda, they have what they call Umuganda Day. This is a day where everybody goes to clean the whole country, including the president. So as youth, we can as well use that initiative to be able to come together on that day. Everybody comes together just to make our country, our community clean. This can also build the peaceful coexistence between us, because at least once every month there is one day where we come together and do something that is of common interest. I think I will leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Deborah. So the next question is for Chairperson. Mr. Taban, defining youth in fragmented context, that's South Sudan. Consultations revealed stark disagreements on the age range for youth. For example, others say it's from 17 to 25, others are like 18 to 35 versus cultural initiation markers. And then, given South Sudan diversity, how can policymakers reconcile these differences to create a unified definition that aligns with the African Union Youth Charter 15 to 35 while respecting local traditions, especially when age-based exclusion risks marginalizing groups like pastoralist youth?
Thank you so much. It's a bit tricky question, but when it comes to age, it is something that is, at the end of the day, you can even bring conflict. So, but my understanding, there are different definitions of a youth. As defining UN are defining it with their own understanding. AU Charter is also defining it as people from 15 to 35, and a lot of definitions. But now, when you look at our context as a country, we should also put in our mind that South Sudan has been struggling from 1955 till now. We're still struggling. We have undergone a lot of critical moments, wars over wars over wars over wars. And now that raises the question of our educational system. Is it really sustaining the people at the grassroots level? Because when we are defining the age of youth, we are supposed to define knowing that we should not also disadvantage people, more especially people at the grassroots level, the club level. Because in the Multi-stakeholder system, let's just put an example of the Multi-stakeholder system. You always initiated after 22 years. The initiation is always done after 22 years. Assuming you were born today and the initiation is today. Okay? So meaning, by that time you're going to be initiated, you'll be 23 years. That's an example. So 23 years, you put another 22 years, you'll be 55 years, right? So 55 years downward to our understanding, 45, 55. So 45, right? 45. No, 22 plus 23. 45. Yeah. So 45 years to our understanding, like where I come from, downward you're still a youth. Putting the fact that when you're initiated as a youth, you're supposed to stay for 22 years. Despite of whether you're 25 years, whether you're 22 years, so that brings the conflict of defining a youth age from 15 to 35 years. So all of those ones who are initiated at 25 years, they also stay for another 22 years. and they stay for 4 to 5 years, like for example. So it brings another conflict of like, we need to understand, and this one needs us we really need to combine ourselves, so we do some consultations on the ground, so that we come up with the real definition of the youth. Because when you go to the grassroots level, I am a pastoralist myself. You find someone big, he said he's still running. Because to our context, you're still looking after animals, and you're still protecting the territorial integrity of the community, still protecting from your enemies. So, to my understanding, I think the only thing that will define the age bracket of who a youth is our constitution, because the constitution, as we are talking about right now, it is still undergoing through a lot of consultations. So when it becomes a supreme law later, and then when it says the youth bracket is from 15 to 35, I think everyone will abide by it. But when it says from 22 to 45, we have no option to abide by it. Thank you so much.
So what you're trying to tell the policymakers is, because the constitution has not been made yet, meaning the policymakers also want to hear from you. So what is your recommendation? 22 to 45, or we just abide by African Union 15 to 35, or 18 to 35?
Let me give you an example. Recently, I came from where you laugh, sincerely speaking. The youth representation. We have someone from Ivory Coast. He was the president of the National Youth Council. He's 55 years old. And that's the reality. 55 years old, and there is nothing you can do about it. So, in my own understanding, we will need to define youth age bracket in our own African way of understanding. Looking at the fact that South Sudan has gone through a lot, how do we define our age as the Republic of South Sudan? Do we need to borrow, like for example, if you're contesting for positions that says we need someone from 15 to 35, and then we need a qualification of masters, okay? In our context right now, it is very few. Will you really get someone who has a qualification of masters at 35 years old in South Sudan, or else that person might have reduced his age? That is one thing that I have to be very, or else you will also get one person or two people on one condition. Those are the advantage. Those are people who get advantage because maybe their parents or they have been studying a very income. But to our reality, for you to get that qualification is going to be a tug of war.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What? Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much. Just a bit of clarification and an addition to what the chair of the South Sudan Youth Union have said. When we presented the youth development policy, the Council of Ministers, and that was before the president, there were two options that were presented. The UN definition of the youth age bracket and the African Union was what we say as South Sudan. In our constitution, there is no mention of the youth bracket. It is not there in the constitution that we have now. It says anybody above 18 years is an adult. So we have no age bracket within our constitution. But then because we have the age bracket in our youth development policy, the president said we will consider the one of the African Union, which is 15 to 35. So in our youth development policy right now, we have 15 to 35 as the youth age bracket for South Sudan. So I advise that we adopt that until we have another one in the constitution that may change or may contradict this one currently, because that was what the president said. Ministry of Youth and Sports take this age bracket in line with the African Union, because we are part of African Union. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I think maybe just to highlight a little to what Taban has said about it's very hard for us to get a South Sudanese who has masters. This is for us to know that we should start prioritizing education in Jama. There's somebody I met, she is 25 and she has a PhD. She did not forge her age. She is 25 and she has a PhD, and I looked at her, I was like, wow. war must end in South Sudan. But all in all, education is very important, and start sending your children early to school for future references. So now we are coming to Emmanuel Kuku. Emmanuel, there's a bridging the urban-rural participation gap. While Juba and Eastern Equatoria reported structured youth engagement, he almost said it, councils and digital platforms, consultations in Lake State and when highlighted systematic exclusion, particularly for young women. What actionable steps can ensure rural and marginalized youth facing economic, cultural, security barriers are not left behind in peace processes?
All right, as a young person, I will just go directly to the points and the views that I'm going to put onto that. When we look at the actionability step that we, civil society or young people or the political or the developmental partners, we need to make sure that within the youth peace and security strategy, we have a role of participation. And when we look at that as a young person or as a political party or any other developmental partners, we need to really look into the role of adaptation. We have to adopt the youth participation in what? In intervention. Because when we don't adopt that, we didn't come up with the adaptation of the youth participation in the intervention, it will become hard for us to get the value or the voice of young people, you see. And we find, based on the report, the report is showing Eastern Equatoria, Bentiu and all that, but we cannot just be clarified onto these two states because other parts of the countries are also having the same challenges as the young people. Because if we are not involving young people into the table or put them on the table of the discussion, having to hear to their voices into the discussion, then we are ruling out their voice. Because at the end of the day, we find that young people are the more vulnerable people that, let me, from the point of rank, politicians using young people as a source of their own interests. Because being in the grassroots, I've not gone to school as my colleague says. I've not gone to school. I cannot analyze the statement that someone is coming to convince with me. Yeah, I can't analyze because I look at, okay, this is the person coming from my village and he is there for me. That means I have to do his will. But before knowing it, are we really involved them before you take a decision? That is something that we need to, as my answers toward this. And then the other point is we need to look at reaching out to the young people at the grass and the marginalized themselves to identify their needs. Are they all after what our elders need? Or we have our own desire? That is something that before you carry an initiative, you need to first involve them in the planning. That's when we also need to refer to, like in a programmatic areas. Before you start implementing a project, you need to make sure that you bring these people onto the table, take them through what you're going to implement, let them be part of the implementation, let them be part of the planning, so that tomorrow, when you're coming to implement the project, let them know to influence you, that you know what, you are just coming to enforce for us what you are bringing in from the western part. But when you put them in the table, you put them to discuss, then they will really know that we are part and passion of the what? Of the initiative. We are part and passion of the decision. The last point on this question, what I'm looking into is that we need to empower the youth mindset. Because when we look at the mindset of the young people, most of them are not thinking outside the box. Most of them are thinking just within the culture beliefs and culture thought, the way they rose up with. Let me give an example with me when I was down in the village in Maridi, Western Equatoria. You know, for me to move naked, the normal, let's say, like, you know, look at this boy with small farm. That means I was naked. And I was not putting on a dress. And for them to put in me to know that I have to put on a dress, they have to look at something tangible in my body. They start, you know, provoke me with that. And then also there's a term they use when you are not circumcised. Some kids will go to go and plant the manga tree. They make it like, how do you call it? Just like a small hole. They come and say, give me some pest. Because you're not circumcised, then they know that you being not circumcised, there's some what? Some pest within your private parts. And that one enforced me to go and circumcise myself at a younger age. You see, these are the type of the things that we need to empower young people. Doesn't mean that if I'm not circumcised, I'm not eligible in the society. These are some of the things that we need to really look when it comes to the action steps that we need to take before any steps. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question is going to go to Honorable Pierre again. I've gotten a point. I always believe victory starts from the mindset. Are we shifting the minds of our young people? When if donors come in, and maybe something you emphasize is, and that's the conversation we usually have with donors. How about to ask the solution from the community? Because they know the best recommendation. Honorable, so this is on balancing protection with prevention. The protection pillar calls for stronger justice systems and psychosocial support, while prevention focuses on education and countering violent narratives. Given South Sudan's limited resources, how can stakeholders prioritize interventions that simultaneously protect youth from violence and address root causes like unemployment and tribalism without spreading efforts too thin?
Thank you, moderator. One thing we have learned in our engagement with the young people is that there is that disconnect between expectation and the behavior of the young people. Usually we see young people on the street and we are expecting them to behave in a certain way. I don't know, even in our homes sometimes, I see especially in Juba that some of us men, we like to sit in the evening outside on the street. I don't know, because of the heat in the fence. Taking tea, I don't know. You don't know what is happening in the fence. You have your children sitting there, but you're on the street taking tea, I don't know, communal eating. I fail to understand. I'm sure my neighbors where I stay feel like I'm a selfish man. But when I go home, I need to sit with my children. Because there is this disconnect that you expect your children to behave in a certain way, but you have not sat down with them. You know, when we are talking about protection of young people, it starts from home. Where did your child go? That is coming home or she's coming home at 11. You don't care. They are watching football. Did he go to play football? Is she from the church? Do children go for funerals? Do they sleep there? Your child? Is it the culture of the people of South Sudan, or because she's a shabab, a youth, she can go and sleep in the funeral and come the next day? And you are there called a father. So how do we really protect our children? And then also, we should protect our children from that behavior of embracing violence. Some of us actually instill violence into our children, and they live with it. I was told in some communities, if a child becomes very unruly, breaking the TV, I don't know, the glasses, they say no. And if you want to review, they say no, we don't stop children. Leave him. That's a brave man. He will grow to be a brave man. We still also, South Sudanese, entertain this behavior that in the village, the child who's beating other children, I don't know, in the cattle camp, that one will not go to school. That is a man. The one who is crying, going to the mother and saying, I was beaten, that's a useless child. Let him go to school. So we are glorifying violence, and we are not protecting our children from violence. We also have these sections that I always talk about. You know, my brother here, Taban, was talking about the Moyomiji, who are protecting the territorial integrity of a community. But our constitution says that we have the SSPDF who are mandated to protect the territorial integrity of the Republic of South Sudan with the property of the people. But then in your community, you have another protector of your territorial integrity. So you are conflicting between the established. You'll come. She's just telling me to give the names. But I will give the names in the next session. So, but really, as South Sudanese, how do we protect our children from, our young people from violence, when we are the ones setting them in the forefront? Arrow boys, that's what you want me to talk about. Red Army, not White Army, Tit Bai, Tit Weng, Galweng. So many names, Moyo Miji. So we have to look at protection. That is our cultural, customary protection, where we are also part of the exposure of our children to issues, to violence. The other way we need to protect our children, as it is enshrined in the document that we are launching today, is through the government institutions, providing justice, making sure that violence is not entertained in our community. And this can be done by our traditional authority and also by government. On the prevention, really key things need to happen. Or still on the protection. When children are exposed to this violence, there is need for psychosocial support, trauma healing, and counseling. Because if we don't undo those things, it becomes a problem. And I come from a background of a teacher. So as a teacher, you know, we read you parents from your children's behavior in the class. There is no way we don't live in your homes. But a child who is saying certain words, insulting, sometimes we ask a kid teacher, who is the father of this child? Because a child is born, not tabula rasa. A child is a candle. The brain of a child is a candle that needs a matchbox. It's not an empty slate. But there are a lot of knowledge there. It depends on how you as a parent has given the matchbox. What type of matchbox will you give to the brain of your child? Then the child will continue to light in the society to show where the child is coming from. So psychosocial support, trauma healing to the young people is important. As I've always said, this building, we cannot build it with the broken bricks. We would not be sitting here. An Amara like this can only be built by the real bricks. We cannot build South Sudan with broken people. People who are psychologically sick, who are traumatized. So a lot needs to happen in terms of addressing those psychosocial support. Those are all part of prevention. Now when you, protection, when you come to prevention, to prevent young people from the things that they are doing, which are not good, we need to think about alternatives, sustainable livelihood skills. This can prevent young people from going to fight. Community dialogues, parents sitting down with children and talking to them about the expectation and how do you become a man or a woman tomorrow, you know? Even in some communities, we are not doing this, not very many in South Sudan. When a girl is about to get married, the girl goes to stay with her aunt so that her aunt can train her what it means to become a housewife. If a man, a boy is reaching the age of getting married, he goes to the uncle. The uncle will teach him how to become a husband. These are things that we need to promote. These are ways of, you know, preventing conflict. So that that home, a woman who goes there, a man who goes there, they are making a family. They know what to do to be called a family. So really, for the young people of South Sudan, it's about providing alternative to violence. The young people should have something to lose. If a human being has nothing to lose, I don't know. I cannot imagine more. If I, Pierre, do not have anything to lose in life, I don't have children, I have no house, no education, no job, I will just go on the street and start running. Whether a car is coming or I run to the airport, I'm knocked. So we must make the young people of South Sudan to have something to lose. A job to lose, education to lose, a family to lose, a farmland to lose, a business to lose, a country to lose. These are things we need to instill in the hearts of our people. So that will prevent them from doing the alternative. But if they have nothing to lose, guess what? They will go to the alternative of violence. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You would hear a parental advice there, not as a undersecretary. So the next one is going to Honorable Deborah. Youth participation beyond tokenism. The strategy emphasizes youth councils, leadership training, and mentorship for meaningful participation in a context where youth are often sidelined in formal peace processes. For example, like the 2018 Revitalized Peace Agreement, if you all noticed, it's usually women who actually stood there, not youth. What concrete steps can the government and partners take to ensure youth inclusion translates into real influence, not just symbolic representation in decision-making at all levels?
Thank you, Anna. Given our historical background, we have not had established structures of government. And so if youth have not been considered in any way, it still goes back to that lack of structures at the beginning. But I see that the government now is coming up, considering the youth. The other day we were in this room talking to the youth about inclusion in the constitutional making process. So already the government is taking steps, and the government is also taking steps by us sitting in this hall today, launching a youth peace and security. We may not dwell much in the past, but from now, as we move forward, we can see that the government is doing some positive steps. One aspect of doing this is also for the government to allow or to have a percentage of youth participation in all levels of government. That has been done with the women. We have 35%. It is there, although we have never reached that threshold, but at least we are somewhere. Yes. So I don't know why he's looking at me, but it is true, we have not reached any threshold. I will listen to that later. You hold it for now. So it has to have a youth participation percentage stipulated in the Constitution, and I hope and I think that the youth are pushing about that in this constitutional making process, because that is very important. And another one is also for the youth. This is now going to the youth, because as the youth, to be able to open up to join politics, join political parties, become part of the foundation of this country. Because if you have no political party, you are an activist, you remain an activist. Because no one will call you to come and be a part of SPLM or NRM and other political parties. You need to open up and join and then learn. Let us learn as youth from the elders. Say that there is a point of succession. Sometimes what happens is some youth, a few who have been given opportunities, may end up now wanting to overtake the elders. The elders still need the seats for now. So gradually, as you also make them like you, is you by lying low and do whatever that you have been asked to do. The elder will recommend and say, no, this young man is respectful, he's hardworking, I think they can be considered. And that is how I even moved to where I am today.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Asking for my view of a young woman or young youth. Does it mean that we must join a political party before we can literally be in leadership? Just a question.
If you want It is not a must. It is if you are willing, if you want to join politics. If you want to join politics, you can join political parties, or you can create the network with the people that are in leadership positions to be able to bring you, to hold your hand and bring you at the table so that you can learn from them. I think that is what I mean, because we cannot ask everybody to be politicians, and it is not a prerogative for you to be in a leadership position. But I want areas where youth can make a breakthrough to leadership positions. That is one aspect of making a breakthrough. Another one is also coming closer to Pia, to volunteer in his office. And if he sees you a young person that is hardworking, one time he will recommend you to another position that you have never thought of, because people identify talent. People identify talent. And Anna Menedo is one of the people that I met in a short time, and I saw her capabilities and her potential. So I asked her to come and volunteer in the Ministry of Youth and Sports, where she's doing an amazing job. Okay? So that is what we want to do. That is what we want to do at youth. So another aspect of the youth to be able to be allowed at the table. Because I know it is not only politics, it is not only, but where you are seated, if you shine, the light will be seen. Your light will be seen if you shine where you are. And somebody who likes the light will bring you forward and says, don't shine behind there, come and shine in front so that every other person can see you and benefit from you. So with this view, this is how I want us to approach things as youth. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know how many young people are writing, but deep inside me, I've taken that. You start stealing those strategies and start seeing, when Honorable Pia is going like this, say, sir, I'm willing to serve you. You know where you honor, the grace will honor you. So, Taban Paride, you repeatedly expressed frustration that their inputs end in workshops. That's, for example, the Malakal quote, education is our only weapon. How can the strategy move beyond token consultations to institutionalize youth-led monitoring and accountability mechanisms, ensuring their priorities, education, jobs, protection directly shape implementation?
Thank you so much. I think this is a direct question. So when we talk of ownership, like we have to start from the involvement in planning, from planning to implementation, and from implementation to M&E. I think I'm one of the person who has been questioning my brothers in the civil society and other organizations to do one thing. You're not only reporting to your donors, it is being biased. We need 3 ways reporting. You report to your donor, or first of all, you report to your government, you report to the donors, and then you report to the people that you are taking the services to. But constantly, we are reporting to our donors. Me, I look at it as something biased, because if you're only reporting to donors, meaning there is something fishy that you're not doing good on the ground. So the youth are feeling frustrated because of such kind of things. Now, when it comes to education itself, as you mentioned, sometimes in our education system, we all know, and that is the reality. Some youth will apply, will want scholarship, but at the end of the day, they get frustrated. Who are these people frustrating them? It's our own parents frustrating them who are holding such positions. I take an example. There was one gentleman in the Ministry of Higher Education. I think I was the one who consoled him. I took him to my office, and he said, look, he was very bitter. Some people were taken, and then he said the people who were taken are relatives of whoever was handling the form. So these are some of the things that keeps our youth to be frustrated. And now when it comes to job opportunities, sincerely speaking, in the job market as we see right now, it is whom you know, not what you have, your capability as a person. Let's be very honest to ourselves here. You'll find an NGO, one international organization, one national organization, they speak more or less the same language. This is a shame completely. And this is something that has been happening. Even international organizations, you start speaking language there. Yet you are supposed to be speaking an international language that is understood by each and everyone. Because once you're there, you're supposed to equally distribute the employment to the rest of the youth. We have disadvantaged our youth And one thing that I want to emphasize is my elder peers talked about, it's a very crucial thing. He talked about the youth not being proactive enough to shed your light. Sincerely speaking, as you're growing up as a child learns from the environment. You're supposed to coexist with the rest of your peers. Like, for example, your children, that we call your brothers of your same age. But you find in Juba, as we speak right now, we don't have spaces for the youth to want to coexist together. I hear Juba was well demarcated. Lakini asi, the playground, Silu, or even festival. Who are those people taking this festival? You find a lot of Toronto boys. It is us who are the cause until Murafi Sika. Because they don't have where they can coexist. Like, for example, where will they get their talent? Maybe someone is talented in playing football. Someone is talented in music, like, for example. We don't have such spaces where youth can showcase their talent. You go to Gudele. Gudele, we have only maybe one playground, of which Gudele team will always take that playground. What of the kids that are growing? Where will they gain their talent? So this raises a question of like the authority within it. How do we ensure all those spaces that belongs to the youth are given back to the youth? In Lologo, for example, where are they playing football from? And then there are a lot of you call it the gangs, or the Torontos and niggas in Lologo. They only play where? Fitarapahar Bena. But within Lologo, I believe, there was a demo. There is no football ground. But to my understanding, there was a football ground. That football ground is sold, taken. Who sold it? It is our own making. And then we are blaming our young ones. So this raises a question of, let us first have this self-judgment before we judge others. And then let's look, alternatively, my resolution is, one, let us at least, the ownership should be given to the youth. Like youth peace and security, the youth should be the forefront runners of this program. I was so much disappointed when you look around. These are all elders. The youth here maybe are 15 or 12, the way I was counting. And this program is for the youth. And let's be honest here. So it's not making any sense. Like when we have programs for the youth and then the elders take. What do you think the youth would say after going out from here? They say, like what happened in Pyramid by then. Thank you so much.
We are youth here.
Okay, we are all youth. Oh, thank you so much. Kuku, I'm going to give you only 2 minutes, please.
Just too much.
And then after Kuku, we are going to go for questions, maximum 5 questions. So you can start. Joseph is going to, you put up your hand immediately after Kuku is done, and then you ask questions. Direct to the questions. And so, Kuku, while the strategy emphasizes youth participation, how can partners, that's to say that's the civil society organization, donors, government, move beyond token inclusion to genuinely empower youth in decision making and resource allocation, particularly at the community level where traditional power dynamics may marginalize young people?
All right. I think I already have answered the questions. I've given the answer on the previous question. When we look at how can we, honestly, from the point of view, we need to partner. First, because when we look at the nature or the structure of the government, as my elders are saying, who are already in the political parties and the senior positions, and their youth.
Point of correction, senior youth.
Senior youth, no? When we look at the structure, we find that there's some little gaps. And we find the gaps is maybe, for example, between the donors and the government themselves. And the government with the civil society themselves. The civil society with the community-based organization at the grassroots level. And this kind of channel or the structure is not well hold it together, okay? Because for us to do that, we need to really partner with this local, the grassroots community-based organizations or the association at the grassroots level that will really make us to move beyond the expectations and implementation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The strategy's launch marks a significant move toward creating a more supportive environment for youth development. With youth making up over 70% of South Sudan's population as estimated, there is a clear need to invest in areas like leadership and entrepreneurship,